New York City, 1960. In a room full of Wall Street investors, the president of a hamburger company stands up to describe his business, and what he says sounds like a mistake. "We are not in the food business, we are in the real estate business." The man speaking runs McDonald's, and he is completely serious. Today, that strange sentence explains almost everything about the biggest restaurant company on earth. McDonald's controls more than $40 billion worth of land and buildings. It collects payments from more than 45,000 restaurants in over 100 countries. And more than a third of every dollar the company brings in is not from burgers or fries or drinks. It is rent. This is the story of how a struggling milkshake machine salesman ended up building one of the most successful landlords in history, and why the burger was never really the product. To understand how strange this is, go back to 1955. Ray Kroc had just started franchising McDonald's restaurants across America. The burgers sold. The lines were long, the brand was growing, and the company was nearly broke. Kroc's original deal gave him a tiny slice of each restaurant's sales, around 1.4%. Most of that was already spoken for by the founding brothers and the banks. He had borrowed heavily to expand, and the payments were crushing him. The company behind America's favorite burger was, on paper, barely surviving. Then Kroc met a man named Harry Sonneborn. Sonneborn was a finance executive, not a restaurant man. He looked at the books and saw something Kroc could not see. The problem was not the burgers. The problem was the business model itself. His fix did not just save the company. It also planted a hidden mechanism inside every McDonald's agreement, one that would make it almost impossible for a franchisee to ever say no to headquarters. We will get to that mechanism in a moment. In 1956, McDonald's created a quiet little subsidiary called Franchise Realty Corporation. Its job was simple. Before a new restaurant opened, the company would lease or buy the land and the building itself. Then it would rent that property to the franchisee with a markup on top. At first, the markup was around 20%. Later, it grew to 40%. And the lease had a clever design. The franchisee paid either a fixed minimum rent or a percentage of their sales, whichever number was higher. When business boomed, McDonald's earned more. When business slowed, McDonald's still got paid in full. Best of all, the rent started flowing before the restaurant sold a single burger. Kroc's cash flow problem simply disappeared. By 1960, there were around 200 restaurants. The machine was running. Now, jump forward about 70 years and look at what that one decision became. Today, there are more than 45,000 McDonald's restaurants. 95% of them are not run by McDonald's at all. They are run by franchisees, local operators who own the business inside the building. Last year, the company reported nearly $27 billion in revenue. And here is the part most people never hear. Of the money franchisees send to headquarters, nearly 2/3 is not royalty payments for the famous brand. It is rent. A typical operator hands over somewhere between 8 and 15% of everything they sell just for the ground beneath their feet. Land and buildings make up roughly 80% of everything the company owns, which raises a question worth asking the next time you drive past those golden arches. The restaurant may belong to a local business owner. The land underneath it almost certainly does not. And that brings us to the mechanism we promised earlier. Because the rent was never just about money. It was about control. A franchise contract is surprisingly hard to enforce. If an operator cuts corners, serves sloppy food, or ignores the company playbook, dragging them through court over brand standards is slow and expensive. But a lease is a different animal. Under the Sonneborn model, a franchisee who defies headquarters is not just a difficult business partner. They are a tenant violating the terms of a lease, and tenants can be evicted. That quiet threat sits underneath every handshake. It is one reason a Big Mac tastes the same in Tokyo, in Texas, and in Toronto. The consistency is not enforced by lawyers arguing about a brand. It is enforced by a landlord holding the keys. There was one more hidden bonus. Banks consider restaurants risky. Tastes change, trends die, margins are thin. But a landlord with thousands of tenants paying steady rent looks a lot like a safe investment. By turning itself into a real estate company, McDonald's could borrow more money at better rates than any burger chain had a right to. That cheap money funded the golden arches you now see on every continent except Antarctica. Sonneborn put it bluntly to those investors back in 1960. The company sold 15-cent burgers because burgers were the perfect engine for generating rent. Ray Kroc reportedly hated hearing the business described that way. He loved the restaurants, the ketchup, the show. But he never changed the model. 70 years later, neither has anyone else. So here's the picture to keep in your head. Every burger is a meal. And every burger is also a rent payment, moving from a customer through a tenant up to the landlord. The next time you order fries, remember what you are really part of. You are not just a customer at a restaurant. You are helping a tenant pay the rent, and the landlord always gets paid.